What's up? Welcome in. Hoge Jahns with you. The last episode of 2024, a New Year's Eve edition, and going in depth with the Bears coaching search, even though there's technically one game left in the season. What's up, Johnson?
I feel like we've been going in depth on this for a while. I'm going to bring that up to our guest, Dianna Russini, here soon enough. But yeah. Did you see? There's been a lot of good football played recently, not by the team that we cover. Yeah, I'm ready for this coaching search. I don't know about you.
I am real quick on that. I am incredibly excited for this Vikings-Lions game on Sunday night. I mean, obviously you guys know me. I love the NFL. I'm going to watch every playoff game, but I just feel like every year I get more excited for the playoffs. I just think they're going to be, you look at the NFC, especially right now, it's going to be fun. It's going to be really fun. And it's just a shame the Bears can't even sniff these awesome storylines going on right now. It's like the Sam Darnold thing is awesome. I love what Dan Campbell did last night. I don't know if it was the smartest thing to do, but good for him, man. Just stick to your identity, be who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That in itself has value. It gives you momentum going into this was first real playoff game, if you want to put it that way, or for his team this year. I love that he stuck to his identity. They would have lost some momentum, I think, right? Like you would think, like he would be second guessed if he sat his guys, and then they lost against the Vikings.
Well, it's risk and reward, and it was risky, but I think the reward now that they got through it is great. You won another game. It's a short week, but kept everyone pretty much healthy. Everybody's feeling really good about what they did. They come back now. The momentum's riding high, and it's a must-win game to get a bye, and that's the reward. Now you get, if you can beat the Vikings, you get a bye, and you get the 1 seed. Then you get your week to rest without losing momentum in that situation. And we'll talk more about that game on Friday, but I'll tell you right now, I'm kind of leaning towards the purple right now.
Yeah,
to be honest.
I agree with you. Sam Darnold, he is having a season that no Chicago Bears quarterback has ever had. So don't tell me that, you just get the quarterback and coaching doesn't matter. Like, coaching matters so effing much. Look at Sam Darnold. Look at Baker Mayfield. Look at our social media. We were readers, listeners sent us this picture of them as Carolina Panthers backups or whatever they were for that 1 year. And now look at the seasons that they're having for the Minnesota Vikings and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's something. So coaching matters.
Baker's done it 2 years in a row now.
Yeah.
I mean, he's back. He's a legit NFL starter. Not perfect, but for somebody who was cast off, it's been incredible. So a lot of good storylines like that. And the Bucs can clinch their playoff spot this week too. Get Baker Mayfield back in the playoffs. There's going to be so many good games. And Sunday night should be a great one too. And then there's Bears Packers too, which we'll talk at some point. But not today, because today we are going in depth on the coaching search with Dianna Russini, who's extremely plugged in. Her Scoop City newsletter and podcast. It's great stuff. Get it all right here on The Athletic, theathletic.com/Hoge Jahns to subscribe. She's also a lot of fun. She loves this podcast for some reason. Don't quite understand it. But she genuinely seems to enjoy talking to us. So we always love having Dianna on the show. And let's jump in right now with that conversation. All right, let's bring in the perfect guest for this time of year. Dianna Russini does such a great job with Scoop City, all over The Athletic. Her newsletter's outstanding. And with the coaching carousel already heating up, as it usually does, like a week or two before the season's even over. And it's certainly hot in Chicago, as you know right now, Dianna. Thanks for jumping on with us again.
Well, first of all, I actually think you're incorrect when it comes to this cycle heating up right now. This thing has been going since week 5, since Robert Saleh was fired in New York.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
Like this has been a longer, probably one of the longer stretches of conversation about the head coaching vacancies than in years past, just because we saw so many in-season firings. But you're right. Now that we're getting close, obviously playoffs are about to begin, and we're expecting lots of change to happen over the next week or so.
And especially for the Bears, this is new for us because until this season, Dianna, the Bears have never fired a coach during the season before. So we've been talking about head coaching candidates longer than I can remember, and they haven't even interviewed anybody yet. So
at least not that we know of.
Oh yes, yeah. Well,
they used to announce the party, guys. Welcome to the party. It's fun, right? When you have a whole month or so to think about what the next move is going to be, and I'm sure your mind plays games with you as well. Whereas maybe you're like, oh, Thomas Brown could be it. Maybe he was the secret sauce behind this whole thing. Maybe we should stick with him. And then it's like, yep, nope, we probably should move on. All right. So now we have a clean slate here, and we will see where this thing goes. But let's definitely get into some of the options on the table.
Let's start with Ben Johnson. We just saw him last night. Good game between the 49ers and the Lions. Ben Johnson is my favorite candidate. I think the Bears have to pair an offensive-minded coach with the quarterback in Caleb Williams. What do you think of his candidacy?
I think he's interested in the Chicago Bears. He definitely has some intrigue in the setup there and how this is going to work. He's been a big name for the last 2 seasons, right? With the Panthers, with the Washington Commanders, and in both scenarios, I don't think he really felt that it was the right fit. I think he also wanted to grow more as a person, as a coach. And I remember at the time talking to people close to him about just his own self-awareness, because as you guys know, in this league, if an owner or a general manager believes that you could be the head coach of an organization, it is hard to find a coach that says, you know what, not right now, or this isn't the right fit for me. Most get that it is so hard to get an opportunity here. So the fact that Ben Johnson has that discipline to say, you know what, I'm not ready yet, I think that's already a big green flag for him as a head coach, right? Because that tells you he knows his strengths, weaknesses, and what he doesn't know. So the sense I get now is he's ready to do this, right? So I think that alone is huge, to just know that he wants to get back in this, but that he is not one of those coaches right now that is going to be open to taking every interview. I can tell you that he is going to be purposed with the teams that he meets, and the Chicago Bears are going to be one of those teams that he will plan on meeting with. And he is a coach that obviously the Chicago Bears will be interested in as well.
So, like, why would he? How should I phrase this?
Want to go to the Bears?
Yes. so what? Give me like 5 reasons why he's intrigued by the Bears.
Yeah,
like, you get Caleb Williams, I get it, but this is going to be George McCaskey's 6th coach.
I know. It's so when you are going through these with people in the league that want to be head coaches or hot candidates, and you're having conversations with them, their agents, people close to them about, all right, here are pros, here are cons. The first thing every person says is quarterback, right? Because look around right now. Every team that's going to be in the playoffs has a elite, if not a very good quarterback. You can't win without it. It's the very basic rules of football at this point. It does not matter how good of a coach you are. It does not matter how great your wide receiver is. It doesn't matter how good your running back is. You need to have the quarterback. And anytime I've had conversations with coaches that have been fired, after they get over the emotion of it all, it always goes back to that. Like, we never found the guy. We didn't develop the guy enough. We didn't have the talent at the quarterback position. The Chicago Bears have the talent at the quarterback position, right? Nothing has changed, despite the fact that we've seen some flaws, and maybe even in some situations, Caleb Williams taking some steps back from some production that we saw even earlier in the season where he was looking good. I can tell you from talking to people around the league, there has not been a change in the confidence and belief that Caleb Williams is the guy and that he can play at a really high level. I think we're probably a little critical, a little bit more critical of him, not just because of how the Chicago Bears have performed as a team, but what those other rookie quarterbacks are doing, right? We see Bo Nix going toe-to-toe with Joe Burrow. Like, what? Like, no one was picking Bo Nix but the Denver Broncos. You have Michael Penix Jr. looking like he can play, making some pretty good decisions in just 2 games. And obviously all the others speak for themselves in Washington, and in New England, right, with Drake May. So look, I think there's got to be a move here made to get the best out of Caleb, because this has been a botched year. And it's going to take a coach coming in here to also help fix some of these growing pains, because I don't think the Bears organization wants Caleb Williams to think that this is the NFL experience. What he just went through, all of it, the drama, the coach, the firings, the miscommunications, the bad losses, the hits, all of it. So when you ask why, it's Caleb. And it's not an answer to just say that will fix all of it, because as much as, yes, they want Caleb, the question marks obviously come with the structure of the Chicago Bears, which I know that you guys have talked about tons on the show. I've talked about it a lot as well.
Yeah, Diane, I mean, this is so fascinating, the sort of the different flavors of coaches in this cycle. I think it's a strong cycle the more you look at some of these names. But the one thing I have heard, even from inside the Bears building, is, yeah, Ben Johnson's awesome, but what's going to happen when he comes to Chicago and he doesn't have the same offensive line? Specifically that, right? Like, he's not going to have the same setup that they built really well in Detroit. And how is that going to translate? And I think Johns would say the same thing here. I mean, we're hearing from a lot of players right now, both on and off the record. I think that I get the sense these guys are craving discipline, like craving a big. I think a lot of guys are looking at Dan Campbell, probably even sitting at home watching the Lions game last night and being going, holy shit, that's cool, man. They did not have to play their starters in this game. They just stuck their identity. They went full throttle and they won that game, even though they didn't have to. And I just feel like that's where the Mike Vrabels and maybe the Brian Flores type candidates come in for me, where I just really feel like they can make a difference. However, there seems to be this doubt of how would that mesh with the McCaskies and all that. So I guess let's start with Vrabel among those types of candidates, and where you might see him as a possible fit with the Bears, or perhaps more likely with other teams.
It's fascinating that players are begging for that discipline. And like you said, they may not be vocally saying that. They may not admit it. But I have learned over the years, just like your children, they may not want that in the moment, but when they are going to look back on it, they're going to be grateful that you ran a tight ship, because you learn the most and you can get the most out of them, and they get the most out of themselves. About 2 weeks ago, I was at Lincoln Financial after the Eagles beat the Steelers, and I saw AJ Brown. So remember, AJ Brown was with the Tennessee Titans before he was traded to the Philadelphia Eagles. So he spent years with Mike Vrabel as his head coach. And AJ had never played on a roster like he's playing on in Philadelphia. And so we were just laughing about just how good they are. It's just like an all-star team, right? And I said, what was it about Tennessee, though, for you that you enjoyed it? Because he speaks so highly of it. And they were good when he was there, when they went to the AFC Championship game, but they weren't superstars there. And he touched on Vrabel's leadership. And he said, I have never played for a coach like him. He's like, even just training room, like, so players have to go to the training rooms in the morning to get treatment. Apparently he's nuts about treatment. Like, you have to be there at 7 a.m. and if you're late, he will fine you. And in the moment, it's annoying to the players, but they know he's doing it so they can get back out on the field. Jeffrey Simmons is a great example. He's a player who always talks about how hard Vrabel coaches. Practices are tough, but it's with purpose. Ben Jones, if you guys remember that viral video where Vrabel was hugging Ben Jones after a game because Jones was playing through all these injuries and he was able to finish the game. It was tremendous. And Vrabel and Jones are hysterically crying and they're having this moment and you're seeing this bond. And, you talk about the player coach, but I think the player coach that Mike Vrabel is not the friendly type. He's the, I'm going to get the most out of you type. So when I heard Kevin Warren say leader of men, which I hate that phrase, it's obviously a simple way of going, all right, we need someone in here to immediately give us identity, to immediately hold everybody accountable, to cut out the BS, and to make sure all the details are being paid attention to. Enter Mike Vrabel. But I do think the part of Rabes that is valued around the league that many fans may not recognize or realize, and this is just from covering so many years and just talking to people, is his game management ability. He was on the competition committee for years, and I had somebody on that committee say to me, kind of jokingly, but I think they were serious too, that Mike Vrabel is going to be the commissioner. Like, he understands so much about the NFL. And we saw it on display too. Remember him against Bill Belichick in that wild card round against the New England Patriots, where he used Bill's time management against him. It was like the Bill Belichick way of doing it. And then Mike used it against him, and then they wound up winning the game. So I think when you can combine, and by the way, we're seeing such bad game management right now, right? Like, that's got to be a question.
We know it well.
Ownership, right? Like, you have to we feel a lot. Like, they have to ask him. Or ask any coach that interviews, what is your game management process? How is this working? Who's your guy? Who's going to help you? And I think between that and the idea that he can galvanize and clearly give the Chicago Bears an identity after 1 week, that to me makes sense as to why he will be wanted by the Chicago Bears.
If you're
real
watching
quick,
at home.
yeah.
Yeah, we have a special guest. Your son just entered the studio.
I heard it, but I wasn't sure how much he popped in there. Holidays, no daycare. Shoot me.
That's like the viral CNN moment during COVID.
Oh, that was awesome. And Nanny was like pulling him by the ankles.
Yeah, don't worry. It's definitely not the first nor the last time that's going to happen on this podcast. There's plenty of children involved in this situation here on Hoge Jahns.
I know. Among the three of us, there's like 15 children.
Yeah, and Johns has 14 of them. Look, this is a small thing. I'm not saying it's the end all be all, but speaking to game management, you can actually look this stuff up on Pro Football Reference. Vrabel went 0 for 5 on his challenges his first year as a head coach, and then the rest of the way, 14 of 21. And the last 3 years he was a head coach in Tennessee, he was 11 of 12 on his challenges. Wow. So, like, that's a small thing, but like, I've been looking this up on almost every candidate that's already been a head coach, where you can look up this information because they've done it before. And you'd be shocked. Almost every coach is below 500 on their challenges. So the fact that he finished 11 of his last 12 in challenges in Tennessee, like, it's a small thing. I'm not saying it should be the end all be all, but it matters at least a little bit to me.
Well, he has a guy. It's a secret weapon. His name's John Stryker. They call him Stretch around the league. And Stretch currently is Sean McVay's game manager. Or at least he helps with some of that. I think they actually had someone in place, but I think Stretch assists that. He met Mike Vrabel when they were together at Ohio State, and he came to Tennessee with Vrabel and is essentially in the booth, helping him with the game management, as Mike is obviously coaching on the sideline and dealing with all the situations. And they take so much pride in that, at least in Tennessee when they were together. Even the players, just the teaching of the rules, right? Like we saw in the Bengals game. If Chase Brown maybe knew or was refreshed about the injury timeouts, right? Like maybe it would have been a different situation. I think not only having the coaches know the rules, but making sure the players do too, so they don't make those errors, always stood out to me in Tennessee. And they rarely made those kind of mistakes because they were constantly being taught situational football.
So what do you think, like, Mike Vrabel is looking for in a team? Because I think that's where he's similar to Ben Johnson. He can be very specific. He can be very demanding in terms of what he wants from a team, what situation is best for him. I think this is where Johnson and Vrabel maybe separate themselves from Flores and Aaron Glenn or even Kliff Kingsbury, who could probably be less demanding. Like, what's the best situation for Mike Vrabel? Can the Bears provide him with that situation?
I don't know if what Vrabel is looking for lines up with a Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles scenario. They don't have any background with one another. There's not a lot of familiarity there. There's no tree that connects, So I think sometimes it's helpful when, you obviously see from New England people, when they know the New England way, they're more comfortable. Even the Sean McVay, Shanahan branch, right? There's when there's familiarity, everyone seems to work. I think you got to go back to maybe what the problems were in his last stop. He had in mind who he wanted to be the general manager. Ownership had their own idea who they wanted to be. They went with Rand Carthon. There's a guy named Ryan Cowden, who's now with the New York Giants, assisting Joe Shane. He was their pro player personnel guy in Tennessee. And so Vrabel wanted him because they see things the same way. So the fact that this would be an arranged marriage, I think is hard. But I think it would come down to how much they would value and allow him to weigh in on some of the decision making when it came to the roster. I think sometimes a lazy narrative we do, and I've been guilty of it too, where we go, oh my God, these people are so power hungry, right? Like I even remember when Vrabel got fired, the narrative was like, oh, well, he just wanted all the decision making, he wanted all the power. I don't think there's anything wrong if you're giving somebody the ability to participate and collaborate on the decisions. And I think that's where, if the Bears want him, they would probably have to be open to that, knowing that that's what he'd be looking for. You got to figure the New York Jets, they don't even have a GM right now. How would you not just say to them, hey, whatever you want, right? Like you want to be like not necessarily be the GM, but hey, who do you want to be your GM? You can do whatever you want here. We need help. Fix us. And I'm not saying that the Jets are worse than the Bears. They're not. Well, we'll do that a different episode.
There's no competition.
There's no Madden ratings in Chicago, from what I know. So I think it's just got to be this front office. They're going to have to sell themselves. I really think when it comes down to it, they're going to have to be really transparent with him of, hey, this is what we believe in. This is our philosophy. Here's where we see the team, but also here's where we've messed up, right? Like here's where we need help. How can you help us? And I think that's their best shot. And for the Chicago Bears, with what they've been through, I think it's going to be really hard for them to do it with the first-year head coach. And I think I see this with a lot of teams, right? Just it is so difficult to do this the first time through. Every coach you ever talk to will always reflect on their first year and go, I had no idea what I was doing, right? Like it is you're learning on the job. And I think obviously with the Bears roster, with this young quarterback, with so much talent, trying to get someone with experience makes a lot of sense to me.
So let me bring up another candidate with experience, who I think he's more my connect the dots candidate, where you're saying that maybe Vrabel doesn't have the connections. Let's talk about Brian Flores. There's a Boston College connection to Ryan Poles. I know they weren't in Minnesota at the same time, obviously, but from what I understand, Kevin Warren still has plenty of connections in Minnesota and still leans on, some of those people he knows with the Vikings and can, good or bad, can get a lot of information from people working for the Vikings. So you have that connection where Flores is in Minnesota. I think there's something to be said for weakening one of your NFC North rivals too, which is one of the benefits of hiring Ben Johnson, but it also applies to Brian Flores, who's caused Bears quarterbacks plenty of problems the last couple of years with his defense. So this is my connect the dots candidate with the Bears. Dianna, though, what is your understanding of where things stand with Brian Flores in terms of the lawsuits he has, similar to John Gruden, if he's going to get a head coaching job, there's some vetting that needs to be done here and things like that. And I also do wonder, well, maybe if Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles like him as a candidate, do the McCaskies though, and is that a fit? That's where I kind of question it with Flores.
Yeah. Mike Silver, who works at The Athletic, just spent 3 days with the Vikings and spent time with Brian Flores to find out what he's looking for and what he's learned over the years and where he wants to be. And it was made pretty clear that he loves it in Minnesota and he's proud of what he's done, and we can see it on the field, but he's certainly interested in getting back in to be a head coach. You'll see that feature coming out, I think, in a week. But look, I think Brian Flores' stock is up based on what the Vikings have done. This was not the case a year ago. When I would have conversations about Brian Flores before this time, it was like, yeah, those days are over. He's suing the league. It's too difficult to navigate, and there's just the league doesn't like him. He doesn't like the league. And I don't get that sense right now. I don't think that because he's suing the league, Brian Flores is not going to get a job. I think he's got to get interviews. He's going to take these interviews too. And I'm with you on the connections and the comfort that Ryan Poles will have and Kevin Warren will have with Brian Flores. And he's going to run a tight ship if he gets this job. He's a hard coach. Harder than Vrabel, I would say, in terms of demands and how he likes to have control over the situation. And you guys remember when he was in Miami, there was lots of stories about that. In terms of his personality, I think that's part of him that's grown a lot since Miami, from what I understand, and him dealing with management and how that can come together. But I think for Chicago, I think he would make a really good candidate, knowing that they need to find it's that accountability word I keep using, because I think that's what got lost this last year. I think it's almost like the analogy I always make or I think about is, remember when your teacher would be out, let's just say whatever, on a Wednesday, and the substitute teacher would come in and you just pushed it. You just pushed the limits because you could. And then, your teacher came back in and pulled and reined everyone back in. And at the end of the day, you were a better student when your teacher was there, not when the sub was there. And I kind of felt that way with Chicago the last year. It's like they had the substitute teacher. Like, they need the teacher. And I don't mean the sub as in Thomas Brown. I actually mean Eberflus as well, right? Like, yeah. They need the strong leader in there, which is why it makes sense that Brian Flores would be interested in them and they'd be interested in him. So yeah, I think the league lawsuit stuff won't hold up the interest.
Where do you think Kliff Kingsbury belongs in this conversation? Because he's another one with previous coaching experience, mistakes to learn from.
Yeah, I find him fascinating in this because I saw Kliff in the summer and I hadn't seen him in a while because he'd been off and traveling the world and doing things that we probably all wish we could do. And I just asked him straight up, I'm like, do you want to be a coach again? And he's like, I got to tell you, like, I love being a coordinator. Like, I don't want to worry about all that stuff. Like, it's so great to just work and think about play calling. And I will say, because I've known him for a long time, that was the happiest I'd seen him in a while. And this is even before the Commanders had success. This is just training camp. And so I've always kept that in mind, and just having some conversations with people close to him too over the last few weeks. I think he's going to have interest. I don't think he's going to be thirsty, though. I don't think this is one of these situations where if the Chicago Bears don't court him in the most, over the top way, he's going to be hurt. I think if the Chicago Bears just do their diligence and meet with him and see what he's about, I think he will definitely have interest in coaching Caleb Williams. How could you not?
Yeah, and there's that connection too. But sometimes I also feel like that connection's been a little bit overrated.
Yeah, I think he has said that before. I think he's commented on it publicly about, like, yeah, I was there, but it's not like he's in the trenches with the guy for 3 years.
I don't think he was allowed to coach him, really.
Yeah, there were like rules about it too, and also that wasn't like even Caleb's best season.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great point. No, that's a great point.
So I think that one's a little bit over. How about Aaron Glenn? Where's he in this whole coaching carousel? It would be fascinating if the Lions end up losing both coordinators. Yeah,
they are gonna. This is like the worst part about being a good team and having great coordinators is you're in trouble, right? And Aaron Glenn is a name that a lot of teams are talking about, and they're trying to learn more about him. And he's got a reputation of also that accountability thing, the leader of men. It must be a defensive characteristic, right? Because you very rarely hear the offensive guys are leader of men, right? It's like it must come with just the attitude that you must have on defense. I'm actually trying to think right now of an offensive coach that's like a leader.
Well, I guess Dan Campbell would qualify, but he was never really a coordinator. But he is an offensive guy.
Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
Jim's a great one. Jim's a great one.
The one that got away.
My God, did that work out for Los Angeles? Holy cow. And Vrabel was going to get that job. So apparently he interviewed with the Chargers right after Jim did. And remember, there was a little bit of like chatter that maybe Jim would pull out, right? Then he was going to meet with the Falcons. And so later when it all kind of came out, it was the Chargers were ready to hire Vrabel if Jim didn't take the job. So kind of crazy to think if that would have happened, but they obviously made the best decision there in getting Jim there. But with Aaron Glenn, look, he's going to have interest, not just from the Chicago Bears. I think the Saints are in on him. I think the New York Jets are going to be in on him. And of course, we're recording this before the end of the regular season, where I do expect other coaches to get fired. So there's going to be more openings. I'm interested to see, besides Caleb Williams, what the sell is going to be from Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles. Because guys, I know you've seen me write about it before, and I've talked about it on the show before as well, and in other places. I do think there are just questions about that dynamic. What is Kevin Warren's power here? Why does he have a say on football? Does he have a say on football? How much of a say? Is this just Kevin Warren overseeing Ryan Poles and Ryan's actually making all the decisions? Is this a collaboration? And why is Kevin Warren being handed the keys to all of this? So these are just things that people are asking. And I do think these candidates want to know the answers.
I think the best way I would describe it is right now it's an awkward collaboration. And this goes back to the way the Bears have put this in place. It's hiring Ryan Poles, and then for him to report to George McCaskey for a full season. And then you hire Kevin Warren and be like, well, sorry, Ryan, here's Kevin Warren.
Your new
report
boss.
to him now. Yes, he's your new boss.
And then you have Ted Cruz in this?
Yes, and you had Ted Cruz from the Kansas City Chiefs. So it's a very awkward dynamic, and like you probably got the same messages that I got when they had that press conference, after the firing of Matt Eberflus, where Kevin Warren spoke for 8 minutes right off the bat. You're like, well, who's in charge here?
I know.
Why is he calling his GM the point person? This is just all awkward.
What's Ryan Poles' contract situation? Does he have
needs
1 year?
Yes.
Or are they going to extend him with everything going on? It's crazy.
Yeah. I don't know the answer to his contract situation at this moment, but this may be one of those things where they play it out still and just see how this goes. I will say, though, I would think that the Bears on paper with Caleb Williams, like let's just go back. Let's just say, or let's go forward in a year and you look back on this, like this should be the best job. This should be the most appealing thing. With Caleb, you have the number 1 overall pick as your quarterback. I don't know if they're going to be able to get the guy that they probably are going to need. And I'm seeing that in New York too. Whereas I think what's on, and look, unless some team just throws tons of money at some of these guys, I just think if Ben Johnson really wants to do this, I would consider that a huge win for the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, I think we're all in
So we will
agreement on
see.
that. Yeah, Dianna, thank you so much. We know you got to run, but we always love having you on the show. Appreciate the information.
I love you guys. Can you send me some swag?
Yes,
we can.
Thanks. Yeah, large
that can
sweatshirt,
be
please.
Hoodies
easily.
Do you have a zip? I'm a big zip person.
quarter zip, like full zip hoodie, or
I like full zip. I don't know why. People think it's
I don't
weird
know.
in my family. I like the full zip. I think it's just I like to throw it over when I get a little cold, but then I just want to take it off quickly. But I don't know if your shop has that, but maybe we can look
it's
into
something we can add by request.
it. All right, I love
was
you guys.
gonna
Thanks for
say-
having me.
Thank you, Dianna. I think we just added an item to the store because I don't know that we have a zip up hoodie, but
We could
I know
use one.
Joe and Devin can get it done.
I like I agree with her. I have an athletic hoodie that I throw on like that, where you don't have to throw it over the head, mess up the hair if you get a little gel in.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
See, we're on to something. We've become
good,
hair
yeah.
guys.
Yeah, well, I think I've been there for a while. I think
Well, we
you're a
look like hair
guy
guys when Kevin's on the show.
now. Man, shots fired on New Year's Eve.
Happy New Year, Kev.
That was fantastic. Now I lost my train of thought. Okay. Name that came up this morning that I want to add to the discussion at least a little bit, because one thing I have been struggling with is we keep going back and forth between Ben Johnson, Mike Vrabel, Brian Flores, because as we just talked about with Dianna, it's like these leader of men candidates are all on the defensive side of the ball. Tom Pelissero threw out John Gruden's name this morning. And I don't think personally, this is more me just like kind of conspiracy theory deal. I don't think it's an accident that he's all of a sudden doing content with Barstool. And I think it's honestly a good move by him to get his name back out there. I don't know if you saw the video they did. It was fantastic, actually, to be honest, where they installed an offense with the Barstool staff, and they had them literally on the whiteboard. Like, this is how we, do this motion. This is your position. This is your responsibility. And then they went out on the gym, and they all this stuff they're doing. To me, doesn't seem like it's an accident for John Gruden. And I feel I don't know, man. When he lost his job with the Raiders, I felt like John Gruden's never going to coach again in the NFL, given the politics behind it. I doubt he would be a candidate or a fit with the McCaskies, but he does fit the mold of offensive guy who would kick people's asses and get everything in order over there at Hallis Hall.
Well, as a Notre Dame alumni, Notre Dame High School, that is, his decision to give St. Patrick High School $5,000 immediately crosses him off my list.
Wow.
By rule, he's done. He's off the list.
Yeah.
I'm kidding, of course. But to your point about the McCaskies.
Yeah, why didn't he give that to Notre Dame?
Well, he gave it to some other public schools too. Well, there's some connections. Eddie Barstool is a St. Pat's guy.
Oh.
Yes. So that's fine. That's fine. Just Google John Gruden emails. That's all George McCaskey has to do. He's probably done it already. And that's all you have to do to know that there's no way the McCaskey family is hiring John Gruden to be their head coach. Like, the first thing that pops up is the New York Times article that says Raiders coach resigns after homophobic and misogynistic emails. I just can't see the McCaskey family going down that road with John Gruden.
I agree with you. Look, it's tough because you're right. You Google that, it's all out there. There's no excuse for it. And that's probably it when it comes to that with the McCaskies. I just, if we wanted to have a deeper discussion about all that, are the McCaskies going to vet the language that every head coach uses in football?
They did. Did you not see Hard Knocks?
Yeah. Well, but this case, I don't want to go on the same rant I did a few weeks ago on CHGO that went viral, but it's like the Gruden stuff's different. I get it. I'm not trying to put that in the same category, but if you're getting offended by swearing, then this is just not the business for you. It's football. So I get the Gruden stuff's in a different, category. But, football coaches tend to have their own language. And if you're going to be allergic to that language, your pool of candidates is going down to Mark Trestman.
To me, I feel like their pool of candidates might be small. Like, what's the best way to put it? So, like, the two big candidates that we just went through, in my opinion, like 1A, 1B, whatever you want to do, it's Ben Johnson and Mike Vrabel. But do the McCaskies have the structure? Do they have the answers that these candidates want about their structure? Do they have things in place for these candidates? Like, that is the big conversation, I think, going forward. Ben Johnson, I love what Dianna said just in terms of him, like, gaining more experience, like wanting to go through this more with the Lions, knowing that he wasn't ready. He's probably ready now. He's had a top 5 offense 3 years in a row. But can he work with Ryan Poles? Can Ryan Poles convince him to come here? And the same thing applies to Mike Vrabel, who is the best leader of men candidate, who has experience of hiring good offensive coordinators, who has experience of quick turnarounds. Like, I don't know. Those are the lingering questions that I have. Like, can the McCaskies actually get this done with the best 2 candidates?
I'll also throw this little nugget in there too. Dianna was talking about, some players who've played for Vrabel. She brought up AJ Brown. The Bears have one in their own locker room right now, Kevin Byard. And my understanding is Kevin Byard loves that guy. And he's one of your captains. Not saying that matters a ton, but the Bears have a source of information inside their own building. By the way, I want to give Greg Braggs a shout out for this hilarious idea. It's like one of those half-hearted ideas. But so Vrabel can interview right now. So his idea was get him in the building tomorrow.
Just
and have him like
stare everyone down as they walk into the building.
Like stand at the door. They're like, hey. Or like that hallway between like where we walk, like by the cafeteria, where everybody's always just do the interview like right in there. So like everybody can see it. Just have Vrabel be like looking over, like, I'm watching you. Like, getting back to what I was saying to Dianna, though, I think a lot of players want that. I really think they do. I think they want, good players want to be coached hard. They want there to be structure and discipline and accountability.
And those are the questions I think teams will have about Ben Johnson. But I think with Ben Johnson at this point, at least as an offensive player, you're going to be coached well. You're going to be put in a position to succeed. And I know he's got some amazing talent there, but I would still make the argument that the talent here is not so bad, and you have the draft resources and the salary cap room to quickly change certain scenarios up front.
My question with Ben is more about what does his staff look like? Who is he able to hire? How much experience can he get with the coordinators? Can he bring anybody over from Detroit, or is that going to be a hard no because that's a division rival? Because that really hurt Matt Nagy. I mean, it really hurt Matt Nagy that Andy Reid was like, go take this job. We support you, but you ain't taking any of my guys.
I love you, but see ya. That's literally what happened.
Well, then you got him working with a coordinator, never been a coordinator in the NFL before, never coached with him before. And those are in my this project I've been working on. And part 1 came out last week when I went through hiring a staff. When I went through all the staffs that good coaches had, their first staffs, the boxes that got checked the most for success rate was, have you coached with a guy before? Because that matters. Like, how well do you know them? Has that person been a coordinator, not at the college level, not at the high school level, at the NFL level? Have they been a coordinator at the NFL level before? And then the third one that matters too, and it certainly helped, the one thing Nagy got right was retaining Vic Fangio. So you have a guy who's got experience. They never coached together before, but keeping continuity by retaining a coordinator also was something that was proven through my research to be very successful. So if you can hit 2, there's one crazy case. I want to say maybe it was John Harbaugh, I think, did it when he took over the Ravens. He managed to retain a coach that he had also coached with before. And that hit all 3 boxes. And that was a home run. So when it comes to these candidates, you cannot ignore that aspect of it. And that's with Ben Johnson. Honestly, that's my concern. More about that than anything else. He may have those answers, and that'd be great if he does, but we don't know that right now.
The most awkward pairing, sorry, going back to Nagy, the most awkward pairing actually turned out to be Harry Hiestand and Matt Nagy. I mean, Harry Hiestand, like Mark Helfrich became a scapegoat after 2 years, but so did Harry Hiestand.
Yeah.
The offensive line coach from Notre Dame.
Yep, 1,000%. Also helping Vrabel's candidacy with Mike Vrabel. Stretch striker? Was that not the best information Dianna just gave us?
What an awesome name, by the way.
I mean, I'm hiring him just for that. That's another important question. Who's your game management guy? How good are they? And is their name Stretch Striker? And if yes is the answer, then you hire them.
You know what this all means? They're not going to get either of these guys.
Damn it, Johns.
But I'm in a prove me wrong situation because I should know better.
You should know better.
Like, these are your obvious 2 choices, the obvious 2 best candidates.
Yeah.
The best offensive mind on here and the best experienced head coach, leader of men candidate.
We are proud to introduce Josh McCown as the next Chicago Bears head coach.
Great dude, though.
Great guy.
I think he's
family guy.
actually on the record. How about this? Josh McCown, longtime NFL quarterback, is on the record saying that he'd like to stick with Kevin O'Connell longer because he's just starting to learn or starting to tap into the details of that offensive system that he's learning. Think about that.
Yeah. I think Josh McCown could be a good head coach sometime. But I'm just saying that's the guy that they would hire right now. That's probably not ready. Has connections to the team. They know he's not going to ruffle a ton of feathers. He's the reach guy. You don't get Ben Johnson, you get Josh McCown. All right, we gotta go. Happy New Year to everybody.
Enjoy all the football. Great football coming up.
It's great.
Talking about college football.
Yeah, we got awesome games tonight, tomorrow. Got the Winter Classic before that, which I'll certainly be watching. And yeah, should be a great night. Should be a great couple days. At some point, we'll have to talk about Bears Packers. That'll be Friday. We'll be back on Friday with that episode for you. We'll be taking New Year's Day off. So Friday morning, we'll be back. We'll preview one last go around with the Green Bay Packers. Hey, maybe the Bears can end this god-awful season with a win over the team they've lost 11 straight games.
To quote Vic Fangio, probably not.
Probably not.
To quote ourselves, we should know better. Talk to you on Friday.
See ya.